Vato arahato sama samputtasa buddhang dhammang sanghang gunuttaru rang pacayang namasami. When we establish mindfulness on an object such as the breath, it may seem a very simple and straightforward kind of thing to do, in the sense that there's not a lot of theory involved, deliberately so. And we, most of us, are in desperate need of some simplicity in our life. So what could be more simple than being aware when you breathe in, that you're breathing in, and breathe out, you're breathing out. But it is remarkably significant. Could almost say it's like a turning point in your life, or maybe samsara, the samsaric existence. In a sense, it's a dramatic and radical shuffling and change of the way that you're looking at your mind. So this constant flow of phenomena through the mind, for thoughts, feelings, emotions, and so on. And the fundamental unexamined assumption is that this is me, minds, basically. But when you focus attention on an object, you're now dividing all these phenomena into two categories: the breath and everything else, or mindfulness of the breath and everything else. So now all that flow of phenomena, formerly assumed to be self or belonging to self, is now perceived as something which is pulling the mind away from the breath. It is phenomena. So an angry thought arises, a greedy thought arises, a happy thought arises. For the first time we can really see, yes, there's no owner of that phenomena to be found. There are things arising and passing away, and we either recognize them as such and allow them to go their way, or we grasp onto them and abandon the breath. So the first function, and very important function, of meditation is to illumine everything which is not peaceful. So we don't yet know what peace is. It's kind of nice, inspiring idea maybe, but it's only speculation. We don't have a goal that we have visited beforehand to guide us in that way. But what we can all know from day one is what is not peaceful. So it's recognizing what is not peaceful, not identifying with what is not peaceful, not identifying with impersonal, impermanent, incomplete, flawed phenomena that are rising, passing away, rising, passing away. simply to that shift of perspective, that's a quite remarkable thing, which very few people, non-meditators, would ever be able to experience. And with our effort to maintain mindfulness on this object, this very simple object, then the first thing that appears is how difficult it is. And again, the question is, why is it so difficult? Why can we not say, I'm just going to keep my mind on my breath for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour or however long we want to? The identification with the body is the strongest kind of identification, but it's also the most easily recognized. And I think few people would identify with every part of the body. And they say, well, if this body is you, then when you go to the bathroom, does that mean some part of you has gone into the toilet bowl? Are you diminished every time you go to the bathroom? Is who you are augmented every time you eat something? I don't think anybody would claim that, would they? It's obvious. But even if you were to say have a terrible accident and lose an arm or a leg or something like that, you wouldn't think that would fundamentally change your sense of who you are. So the sort of the impersonality of physical body, as I say, it's something we hold on to. The identity with the physical body we hold on to very tightly, but it's very coarse and not too difficult to see through. And I think that probably the part of the physical body which we attach to most strongly and which does deceive us the most is the face, isn't it? We give incredible importance to face. And with so much of who we feel we are expressed in our face, on people's face. And meditation on the face is not something that's often taught, but it's very, very powerful meditation in its way. If you're just aware of all the sensations in your face. We have certain kind of default expressions. Everyone has like a default smile and a default frown. But if you find yourself in a characteristic, in some of the sense, this is a kind of a characteristic expression that you have on your face. And then stop and identify all of the muscles, the contraction, relaxation of the muscles responsible for that particular expression. Again, this is the anatta, non-self. And of course, the role of all the different physical elements, such as skin and the hair of the head, hair of the body, and all these different things. I'll tell you a story about when I was a boy. When I was a boy, I was sick a lot of the time. I had asthma, and used to miss school a lot, so I was a real bookworm, and I studied a lot harder than my friends who went to school. But in my parents' bedroom, there was a dresser with a big mirror. And so I don't know how this started, but when my my dad was at work, my siblings were at school, and my mother went to the shops. And I got in this habit. I'd go into my mother's bedroom and I just stare at my face like this. And I would detach from my physical body and float up and be able to look at my physical body, looking into the mirror. It was a fantastic experience, and I got totally addicted to it. And then, again, the really weird thing was that year we moved house to another part of the country, and with all the changes that took place and going to a new school and making new friends, I just stopped, and I never did it ever again. It was only many years later, I think. What was more amazing, that the experience happened, or the fact that I just gave it up just like that, after finding just, one of the best part of my life. And just, are you sure you don't want to go shopping, Mum? Is that, maybe it's like, don't have to worry about me. I'm okay here. I've got my book to read. You just go ahead and go and have a coffee or something. But that staring at the face, looking in the eyes in the face, and looking and looking and looking, and then just something that is the most familiar thing, and the thing that you identify with the most, just becoming totally strange. And then that movement from familiarity to complete kind of alien, and then disassociating it from it altogether was... I think it's stayed with me as a first kind of spiritual experience in my life, I guess. Anyway, the observe faith, and you observe other people's faces and expressions and things as manifestations of the physical elements of the face and the particular manipulation or configurations of muscles. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the work of Paul, what's his name? Paul something or other, who did all these experiments with faces and put needles into faces and mapped the whole the face and facial expressions of people around the world to find like universal facial expressions. He was the person who discovered micro-expressions. You may be familiar with this, and that there are these micro-expressions that are completely involuntary, that endure for just a fraction of a second. But you can train people to recognize these. And the example he gave was, it was an example of someone asking President Clinton whether he'd had an affair with an intern, and he's like very serious, and he's looking at this, no, he didn't. How would he do something like that? And then they were able to slow it down to the extent there's this micro expression, but it was a big smile on his face. And it was so quick you couldn't catch it unless you've been trained, and he wasn't aware of it, but this sense of I'm getting away with this, they're believing it, So this is everything you see is can be an object of investigation and study, because like anicca, dukkha, anatta, these are not philosophical theories, and it's just the way things are. They're already like this. Everything is already and always has been anicca, dukkha, anatta. And the Buddha himself made this point. He said, whether or not a Buddha arises in the world, things are anicca, dukkha, anatta. Returning to this idea of putting your mind on one thing, and then by dint of doing that, by doing that, you illuminate the nature of everything else, which is not that thing. That's, I think, interesting idea. And one application is, if you really want to know how you feel about all the people around you, then spread feelings of metta towards them. You'll immediately realize if there's any kind of lingering kind of resentment, and because it just doesn't kind of flow so easily, you know. So once you have this metta, then all the areas in which there is a lack of metta become apparent. One of my favorite phrases, Pali, I mean, it's just a very simple phrase, is Mettancha sabbalokasmin. It's in the Metta Sutta, Kalyana Metta Sutta. So having metta for all beings in all realms. This is the essential feature of metta, which distinguishes it from affection and liking and all these other positive emotions, that there's no picking and choosing. And for it to be metta, it has to be even with all beings. And the Buddha famously said that the feeling that he had towards Devadatta, his evil cousin who tried to kill him and take over the Sangha, and the feeling he had to Rahula, his son, were the same. And that, of course we would assume that he would have unlimited love for his son, but not necessarily so for someone who caused so many problems for the Sangha and for him himself. So in developing metta, the thing we have to always be aware of is, I have metta for all sentient beings except for him. It's like, I'm working on him. It's like metta for everyone else, but that's not metta. You see, not yet. So with metta practice, again, it follows a principle which applies throughout, I think, for most meditations, for all meditations, and that is you start off with what's simple and easy, and you gradually work towards what is more difficult. But you recognize the difficulty, and you're not just turning your back on it. It's like metta for everyone except for him. But you're on that path. You recognize that that's a fault and a weakness, and you're moving towards it. So with metta, traditionally we start off with ourselves. And, we want a loving kindness for ourselves. There is a passage in a sutta, King Impersonality of Kosala goes to see the Buddha, and King Impersonality and the Buddha were the same age, and it's quite a touching kind of relationship that they had over the years, and many exchanges and dialogues and teachings, and even the Buddha giving Impersonality a mantra so that he could lose weight, because he's like a chronic overeater. So there's this kind of touching human interludes in the suttas. But one day King Impersonality was very kind of happy because he'd had a kind of a Dhamma reflection, you see, and it came to him. And he just had to go and tell the Buddha about it, because he's very proud of this. And he arrives and he says, Lord, I had this reflection. Some people say they love themselves, but their actions and their speech and their thoughts are those of an enemy to themselves. So although they claim they love themselves, what they're actually, how they're living their lives, how they're speaking, are in fact the action, speech of an enemy. And he said other people don't claim to love themselves, or even to say that they don't love themselves, and yet nevertheless, the way that they act, the way they speak, the way they think, are the actions, speech, and thought of someone who loves themselves. And this was King Pasendi's reflection. And the Buddha said, well said, well said. His face is beaming, last, Now often there are a number of suttas which are not delivered by the Buddha himself, but by disciples, monks, and many by Sariputta, Moggallana, Ruddha, and bhikkhunis, and even laymen and laywomen. And what will happen is that some dialogue or some teaching will be given, and it's repeated to the Buddha, and then the Buddha praises it, and he gives like his stamp of approval. And often he may even say something, that's exactly how I would have said it if I'd been in that position. And so that becomes part of the canon. And so King Pasendi's words have been immortalized after that exchange. So what does it mean to say, we love each other, we love ourselves, and people say, I'm treating myself to this, or I'm doing this sort of expression of I'm loving myself, therefore I deserve an ice cream or something like that. So spoiling oneself or giving some pleasure is considered to be an expression of loving oneself. But in the Buddhist context, loving oneself, it's not a kind of necessarily an emotional thing, but it's acting and speaking and thinking in ways which genuinely lead to your well-being. And even if you claim that you're acting, speaking in with your own welfare in mind, but if in fact it's quite the opposite, then that wouldn't be metta for oneself. Metta has to be based upon wisdom, understanding. So I think I've spoken before, and you probably heard other Western monks talking about the difficulty of teaching metta in the West, where the culture and historically the influence of dominant religions has meant people often have this underlying sense of themselves being fundamentally bad or sinful and not worthy of metta. And this is such to me, such a strange concept. It's like being unworthy. I've never really been able to quite understand what that. Well, I can intellectually, but it doesn't really make sense to me on an emotional level. So people saying we can't do that. We don't feel able to spread metta to ourselves, which is traditionally the idea of this is the easy bit, and then you go step by step. You start off with yourself, you establish that, and then metta to benefactor, good friend, neutral, and then finally a difficult person. So you gradually build your strength. You're not trying straight away to spread metta to someone who's hurt you or that you have some strong aversion to, or they have strong aversion to you. So there is the problem that it's difficult to start with yourself, and some meditation teachers will say, well, start off with what is easy, and that might be a kitten or a puppy or something like that. Oh, how cute, so this is like the corny meditation. You just embrace corniness and just go for it. Sentimentality, and it works. It is the idea to this completely kind of uncritical acceptance. Sad as it may be that many human beings find it easier to be kind to a puppy than to themselves, but nevertheless, if that is a way into metta. But if we are going to start off with metta to ourselves, one thing is to assess. Well, don't you have? If you're very negative, I'm unworthy, and I'm just stuck. If you have that kind of self-critical attitude, you say, well, don't you have any good qualities? Is there nothing that you're proud of in your life? Is nothing that you feel is good in yourself? Well, yeah, but not really. And it's like, say, come on, So think of your good qualities. Write one or two down if you spend some time on it, but you can. And just bring those good qualities that you have in your life to the fore, and then, may these qualities grow and mature. So I think a big problem is this idea of me, and we have so many kind of misguided, weird ideas about me and who I am. So let's break it down, into dhammas. You have kusala dhammas in your life. Are you somewhat honest? Have you been kind in your life? Have you any patience in your life? Are you, take these qualities and just reflect on yourself in times when you've been at your best, and when you've been kind, and when you've been patient, and when you've been honest, when you've made sacrifices for other people, when you've been generous. Take specific instances, events, qualities, and say, may these qualities in me grow and thrive. May they develop, may they come to maturity for myself and others. So this is a way that you can start to the metta, not for this person who you've decided is not worthy or is full of faults, but take good qualities that have manifested within yourself, and wish them well, and wish them to develop further. Another idea and technique that I came up with is start off with your body, because you may have negative perceptions of this person you think you are, you believe yourself to be. But I think everyone, I would say, is kind of well-intentioned towards their bodies, aren't they? You say, may my brain be well. May you never get Alzheimer's. May you never get dementia. May you be clear and bright and sharp until 100 years old. You can do that, can't you? Anyone can do that. I don't think you feel, no, I'm not worthy to have a Alzheimer-free brain. Yeah, you still wish yourself good, and may my ears be well. May they hear clearly. May my eyes be well. Maybe I be able to see clearly. May my nose be well. May I breathe in and breathe out without obstructions. May my teeth be well. May they not rot. And may I be free from the need for a root canal surgery. Yes, because it makes you laugh. That's part of it, you see. It's fun, and it brings up, it's all right to enjoy this, Let's go through it, May my gallbladder be well. May my large intestine be well. Just go through, you can go through all the parts of the body. But because there's no hard and fast kind of distinction between the physical and the mental aspects of ourselves, it by a process of osmosis, by this the stream of positive good wishes to all the different parts of your body, then it starts, just you as a person, you just start to, it's okay. So you can go from there. And so quite often meditators will come at, Ajahn, I just, a really good meditation the other day, my mind was really calm, but I did it by this and this and this. Is that okay? It's like it has to be in a book somewhere, or it has to have been taught by a great teacher for it to be okay. Well, the proof is in the pudding, as we say. I mean, if your mind put down the hindrances and became calm and clear and so on, well, it's fine. You can be a little bit creative. So the phrase here that the Buddha uses, Dhammanu Dhamma Patibata, which means practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. So in that phrase, the word Dhamma has two different meanings. So the second Dhamma means the general principles of Dhamma. And the first Dhamma is particular techniques or Dhamma practices. So in other words, what that phrase is saying is practicing Dhamma in harmony with the general principles of Dhamma. So if you have some idea and something, never heard anybody else do that before, but I wonder if it's okay. Will you give it a try? Is it within the framework? Is it in harmony with the general principles of Dhamma? In the guided meditations, I've been emphasizing these three qualities. If you remember, of mindfulness, which means bringing to mind and bearing in mind and not forgetting, that's the mindfulness factor. Sampajanya, that sense of alertness, awakeness, and sense of context, meaning why we're doing this, and whether what we're doing right now at this moment is actually leading to the goal we've established. Are we on track or not? And atapi, usually translated as ardency, but which I'm explaining as meaning the optimum amount of effort to do the job in hand. So you're constantly to be adjusted, fine-tuned, tweaked according to the stage of the meditation. So if you come up with some new idea and something to, it's like, may my brain be well. Maybe that's not in the Visuddhimagga, and it's not in. It came out of my brain. Yeah. So, but applying your mind to something like, is there mindfulness? Is there clear comprehension? Is there right effort? Is it based on right view and understanding? And then the main principles are there. And as long as you're, as I say, you're relating it to the main principles, and if it is a bit kind of way out, then of course, check it with a teacher and just see what they say. But you know for yourself if something is working or not. So I really admired Ajahn Smeto. Almost like very creative. He mentioned when he was a young monk, and he would get criticized. He was the only Western monk with all the Thai monks, and he would be criticized for expressing his feelings too much, too easily. It's a bit kind of taboo, and so, how can he deal with that? And so he got this idea of coming back from alms round, passing the water buffalo. And he just visualized the face of a water buffalo and just integrate. And so when people said things and sort of nasty things or hurtful things or things don't go well, he just put this water buffalo face on. So... And this is meditation, you see, like sort of imagining that water buffalo equanimity. So you can do things like that. I remember there was one American novice at Wat Nanachat early days, and he was city boy, and I not really lived in the countryside so much, but I always really liked water buffaloes, and he was afraid of these water buffaloes. He really stressed out going on alms round, because you come out of the forest and there were little boys taking the kwai, the water buffalo, out to pasture, and he'd get really afraid. And then, but he thought about it, and he thought, well, I'll use this in my meditation. And so he did one of these discursive meditations. So rather than focusing on a sensation or one particular idea or word or something, you take a theme and you allow your mind to think on that theme. So the discipline is sustaining it on that theme, not thinking about other things. And it can be a very good way of calming the mind also and bringing the mind to samadhi. So it was this visualization of walking out on alms round and a water buffalo charging him and goring him, and then him lying dead, bleeding on the path in the middle of the road, and feeling his death coming on, and then imagining looking down on his body and developing this mindfulness of death, using something that was something that was really upsetting him, and became something that he was able to make use of, and to develop very strong samadhi as a result. So a lot of the things that we meet in life, even things that are causing us upset, we just know how to look at them in a slightly different perspective, slightly different way, that they can enhance our practice rather than obstruct it. So with metta, we start off with whatever is easiest and gradually work outwards, as it were, and you can visualize the face of the person. If you take a person from each group, from the benefactor, from the loved one, from the neutral person, and from the difficult person, and then you can, if you're good at visualizing things, and you can visualize that person at a time when you felt real love or respect for them, or when they're at their best, or when they're happy. Just imagine an image of someone who you love or you respect or looking really happy, And you say, yeah, may you be happy, may you, and just really feel that happiness that's coming from them, and you want to add to it. And yes, may you be like this, may you experience this happiness more and more. With a neutral person, it might be, say if you're in Bangkok, there's a guy who sells noodles by the side of the road, or the motorbike taxi guy, or just somebody that you see every day or often, and you remember what they look like, but you don't have any real relationship with them. And then you gradually, if you get to a point where it's getting difficult, then just come back to the easy one again, and just strengthen the mind in the easy one again. Another way of doing this is starting out with different groups of people. And you can start off with metta for everyone in our group, and then metta everyone in Bahn or everyone in Chong, everyone in Korat, everyone in northeast Thailand, everyone in Thailand, everyone in Asia, everyone, and just gradually increasing, and then going from all human beings to animals and birds and non-human beings and devas, and so if you have a list beforehand, so you're not having to say what will be the next one. Who have I forgotten? It's like buying presents for anyone. Who have I forgotten? And it's like have it sort of sorted out beforehand. So metta is the kind of let's say like the default social emotion. That should be just kind of a natural well-being in general, and not distinguishing between yourself or others, and something that's just, it should be just the normal, can be just a normal way of relating to people. And of course metta is paired with karuna, and when there are specific occasions of where people are suffering. And again, it becomes a universal or a boundless, measureless emotion through practice, to the extent that you're not thinking my suffering or his suffering or suffering. It's just there is suffering. What can be done about it? And it's just a natural movement of the mind. It's a natural sensitivity of the mind. There is suffering. Is there something that can be done? What can be done? And that will arise naturally through practice. So the idea that you sometimes, you meditate, you're off in this kind of private little bubble world, and closing your eyes to all the suffering of humanity, and copping out, looking at your navel. That was we used to say that. I've never seen any meditators anywhere staring at their navel, but that was that was a criticism for a long time. Anyway, it doesn't work like that, because the closer you look at the mind, the more you train the mind. It's like the windscreen of the car becomes clearer. You see things more clearly, and it's a cognitive change, but also it's an affective change. And whereas there's more equanimity in the mind, there's also increased sensitivity, particularly to goodness and to suffering. And it's a natural movement of the mind to reduce suffering wherever possible, and to maximize happiness and goodness wherever possible, without making distinctions and divisions. Okay, let's share that with you this evening. So this evening, to end, I'd like to do the chant, sharing of merits the Imina chant. Does anyone know what page this is on? Uddissanaditana Kataya. 30, page 30. Okay, so we'll chant the Pali first and then English. Handamayang Uddissanaditana Gatayo Namase Yemina Punya Kamena Upajaya Gunutara Acharyo Pakaraja Mata Pita Janyataka Suryo Chandi Maharaja Gunavanta Narapicha Brahma Maharaja Indaja Lokha Palaja Devata Yamo Mita Manusaja Majata Verika Picha Samphe Sata Sukhi Onto Bun Nipakadani Me Sukhan Chati Vidang Dento Kipang Papetavo Matang Imina Punya Kamena Imina Uddisena Cha Kipahang Sulame Chewa Tanho Badana Chedanang Ye Santane Hina Dhamma Yawa Nibbanato Mamang Nasanto Samadayewa Yatha Chato Bhave Bhave Ojo Chitang Satipanya Saleko Viriya Mina Maralabhanto No Kasang Katuncha Viriye Sume Buddhadi Pavaro Nato Dhammo Nato Varutamo Nato Pacheka Bhutto Sangho Nato Taro Mamang Tesotamanubhavena Marokasang Labantumang. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, the all virtuous leaders of the world, highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death. May those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss, realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana. In every kind of birth, may I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. The supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
หันธรรมยังธรรมกถาสาธุการังดัฏฐามาเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิ
อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวะพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทสุวัคคโตภะคะวะตานะโมธัมมังนัมมัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิกราบ